If you defended and rocking with Jada, you are a cheater. That is the rhetoric I have been seeing across social media since the whole Red Table Talk with Jada and Will came about. So we have some people who believe that Jada cheated. She was legally still married, regardless of the situation. She shouldn't have been carrying on a whole relationship with August Alcina, etc., etc. Here is my view on it. Marriage is tough. Marriage is difficult. Y'all been asking how y'all grandparents have been able to stay together. Well, here's an example of how they did it. They worked it out. Initially, when I saw what was going on, I felt Jada preyed somewhat on August Alsina. He had divulged that he was molested by an older woman in his interview with Angela Yee. He also talked about some trauma he was going through. Jada mentioned how she was a support system for August. She was working with him through some things. She was really a support system for him. So it almost embodied in the beginning to me kind of like grooming. You know, you prey on people's vulnerabilities and then you're able to get them to do what you want them to do. That's initially what I felt in the beginning. At least just when August's side came out. Cause dude really looked hurt. To me, he was the male version of, I thought she was gonna leave her husband. You know, like you hear all the time, well, he's gonna leave his wife. He's gonna leave his wife. I felt like he was the male example of it, and I think that's what really took people aback for the beginning. What was typically you see the woman going through all of this, but it's the man, you know, and they carried on whatever situationship or entanglement, as Jada called it. But then when Jada came out, her and her husband, and they talked about it, this not only wasn't recent, but this is something that they had already worked through. So what I took from the table talk, first of all, Will looked pissed, upset, embarrassed, some of everything. That's kind of reading body language. That's what I took back or took away from it. And Jada kept calling it an entanglement. Will was like, call it what it is, pretty much. It wasn't an entanglement. You got into a whole relationship. I feel like I didn't really hear any empathy in her interview. It almost seemed like, you know, she was finding herself, as she should. It seemed like she was on her journey to figure her life out and things like that. But I just didn't feel like she was empathetic to the fact that she was in a whole public relationship with someone outside of her husband, and now that they're working things out publicly, it has affected him and their children. I think what I would have liked to see was for her not to apologize for her journey at all. That's not what I'm asking. But I do feel like maybe I hate how this went public and now it could potentially affect his image. But they have an understanding, so who knows what they talk about. But I would have really liked to hear her say, you know, I apologize that this went public and it could hurt you. This could have brought up pain that we have already worked through or pain that they have already worked through. I felt that maybe she could have been empathetic in that area. I didn't really feel that at all. It almost seemed like she was so proud to go through the journey she went through. As again, you know, I do feel like sometimes women are expected to apologize all the time. I can agree with that. I just feel that it didn't really seem like she considered him at all. You know, even though they started working through it, I personally would have been in some way hurtful that now we've moved past this and now we have to relive all of this pain all over again in the public eye at that. So that's kind of to me what I wish I would have seen and I didn't see. You know, but they sat at the table, laughed and joked, and they've moved on, and they're husband and wife, and you know, bad marriage for life, like they said. But and I think that's a level of understanding and a level of unconditional love that a lot of people don't get. I feel for August. I feel for Jada. I feel for Will, because it's really three imperfect people trying to figure out what a relationship is going to be like. They're still trying to work themselves out. No one's perfect. So part of me kind of had to take a step back and was like, you know what? Like, she's still a woman who has children and a career and a husband, and she is trying to find herself. But even when she was talking about, like she felt good, he made her feel good, I was kind of like, damn, you saying all this like in front of your husband? I wonder how, like, ego check. I think that's just something that publicly I wouldn't want to relive. But, they seem to be okay with it. But that's another thing that just kind of stood out to me in that interview was, I get that you're proud of the journey and the outcome for you, but like, damn, do you have to rub it in public in this video? Like, I just wonder what their conversation was behind closed doors. But y'all tell me, what do y'all think? Also, I've noticed this rhetoric on social media where people are saying, if you rocking with Jada, you for the streets. First of all, women can be empathetic to other women's situations, and I don't think that she represents all women, let alone all black women. I do feel that she represents a woman in a long-lasting marriage. Marriages hit obstacles, bumps, ups and downs. It's the pulse of life. I don't think that picking a side at all represents your mind frame at all. I think it just means you're able to put yourself in that situation. But I'm really disturbed by the fact that social media is kind of taking this and they're like, see, if it had been Will, y'all women would have been bashing him, etc., etc. I've seen this really cause a divide on social media. And instead of it opening doors for conversation, it really seems like people are like, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I see a lot of men bashing women based on our opinions about the situation, instead of being able to say, well, as a woman, we can understand where she's coming from. Being with someone for a long time, at some point, maybe you feel unwanted, or maybe you desire certain things, or maybe who knows what was going on behind closed door. Maybe she felt she got tired of being cheated on. I'm throwing out assumptions. I don't know that that's what's been going on, but I can't imagine what it would be like to go through these things, let alone go through them in public. And they're not just kicking it. This is a husband and wife. So I can only imagine the level of pain this must have been for them to have to relive it after, it being 3 to 4 years, like they said. Another rhetoric I've been seeing on social media is people are posting pictures of their house and they living in this house. You think they worried about X, Y, and Z? First of all, NDAs are real. Second of all, I don't think how big their house is determines the pain that a real marriage goes through. I don't think that determines the obstacles they're going to go through. Granted, they just have extra rooms to go put themselves in time out in, but that doesn't mean they still don't have issues to work through. And I think that when you're in a marriage and when you've been going through that marriage for a long period of time, things are bound to happen. Infidelity isn't always an issue, but I can only imagine being in the public eye, being tempted more often. They're not the average Joe, so I can't imagine what arrangements they have. But I think it's really tough to see this play out in the public eye. And in the very beginning, I was pretty judgmental. And I think it was just because August really seemed really hurt in the interview. And I still believe he's truly hurt. But I just think that's what you get into when you deal with someone who already has a significant other. There's always the possibility that they go back. And unfortunately, you deal with it. But yeah, I mean, that was a tough one. Kudos to Will, though. My man's was not giving her any leeway. He was like, what is an entanglement? But apparently that's the word of 2020 now, entanglement. Everybody's going to be in an entanglement. But like Charlamagne the Guy said, entanglements are for rich people. Some of us in situationships, brokenness ships, whatever ships you can think of, situationships, and an entanglement is farthest from what you could call what you got going on. You're not in an entanglement. And some folks out here in an open relationship and don't know it. But that's a whole different topic of conversation. Open relationships or polyamorous relationships, I think is how they say it. But like I said, the NDAs are real, so we really don't know what's going on. everyone genuinely seemed affected by it, though. You know, if you see Will's face, he seemed affected by it. Jada seemed affected by it. August seemed really hurt by it, but I think these are real topics of conversations. Again, y'all have been asking the question, how did grandparents and old school relationships last so long? Well, here's a great example. Ups and downs, working it out, and deciding that you want to fight. You don't always have to, by no means. You know, sometimes you know when it's time to walk away, but it seems to me that they have decided to work through it, and that is their marriage. It is absolutely up to them. I'm rooting for them. But I do feel like Jada still could have been a little bit more empathetic in that interview. But don't shoot the messenger. I'm just giving my opinion. But thank y'all for tuning into Fully Loaded. I am Mecca Williams, your neighborhood hope dealer. Don't forget to subscribe below. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Mecca Williams. It's Mecca Williams on Facebook and Instagram. I'm currently working on a docuseries to tell you guys about the adoption process for my little one. So stay tuned for that. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys more often. This is just my take on Will and Jada and their entanglement with August. And marriages, it's not easy, but they making it work.